back to the Hex Drinkers House of Commons, your one-stop shop for all things competitive and at the common rarity. Chev, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good. It's a nice Monday afternoon. We've got a new set to cover, as has been the theme the last few weeks, and a lot of good gameplay to go over.
By now, hopefully people know the drill, but we're going to talk about, I had another PDC League matchup that we'll talk about. We got a deck of the week, of course. We're going to talk about actually some more community content, a video of the week, and then, yeah, Unfinity. I think after we cover Unfinity, we've made it through the long stretch of just perpetual spoiler seasons.
We'll have to actually come up with stuff.
Yeah, we need some like real content. Luckily this one is going to be easy for us because there's not that much new stuff, and there's really not that much new stuff that's worth talking about. But first off, this really isn't worth talking about either because I got absolutely trashed in the PDC League again.
Electrode is just not pulling the same weight it did from our jank decks.
I know, it's really unfortunate. I'm starting to think that it's too bad that we can't adjust our deck during the league because I really would like to tweak it, but yeah, it might not be exactly where it needs to be. This week I was playing against Danny the Dinosaur. A lot of European people. Once again, I had to coordinate like a difference of like 6 or 7 hours in time difference. So we got together and we battled it out. And Danny was playing a Wilson the Bear. Wilson Refined Grizzly. Yeah, and Agent of the Shadow Thieves as the background. All right, before I get into this, I gotta say I gotta start picking some bones with these PDC people. First off, my first opponent last week didn't have a mic, so we had to do everything through the untapped chat window, which was just a mess. Now Danny had a mic, but these people, like, Danny, go to Moxfield. Why is your list on tapped out?
I know.
Why was the other guy's list on Architect? It wasn't even Architect. It was like some other jank deck website. I don't get it.
You included the list here, and like I haven't seen tapped out in years, and I'm glad they got a bit of a visual update. It looks a little cleaner, but I think the community has largely moved on. So it was a blast from the past to kind of jump back into our old stomping ground of tapped out.
It looks way better than it has, but it still doesn't look nearly as good as, especially Moxfield, but even some of the other offerings. But anyway, since apparently I'm just going to be getting beat down by everyone in all these games, I got to start throwing some sort of shade, right? Make myself feel at least a little superior.
Right, your deck builder is better, so...
Wilson Refined Grizzly, 1 and a green, Bear Warrior, 2/2, can't be countered, Vigilance, Reach, Trample, Ward 2, and choose background. So in case you like keywords, congratulations. And then Agent of the Shadow Thieves, commander creatures you own have, whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent has more life than that player, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. It gains Death Touch and indestructible until end of turn for 1 in a black.
Seems kind of potent.
Yeah, so I got O2'd again. I'm gonna maintain hope. Hopefully week 3 I can make it happen. If I get O2'd again, then it might just be a lost cause, and I'll just go and play and attempt to have some fun. But game 1, turn 2 Wilson, because of course, turn 3 background, attack, and of course get the buff. Danny the Dinosaur was excellent. We had great fun. We played lovely games. I will say the games were a little frustrating, and I'm gonna talk about a few of these niche things. Last episode we talked about how they basically just banned initiative from 60 card Pauper, and we talked about how when you're designing things for a multiplayer format such as Commander, Legends, Battle for Baldur's Gate, Battling Legend Commanders.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, that one. This always triggers, even though I am the only other player, because it says whenever it attacks a player, if no opponent has more life than that player, well, I'm the only opponent, so I'm never going to have more life than myself. It always triggers, which is, frankly, a little annoying, especially because my other big grievance is that Ward 2 is basically hexproof. Technically, Ward is better than Hex. It's a step in the right direction from hexproof, but in these sort of scenarios, it's still extremely problematic. And that was basically my downfall, was I was never able to actually get past the ward in a timely enough manner to actually remove Wilson. Now, obviously, if I was playing a black deck and I had straight up removal spell, the power and toughness wouldn't matter. But switching to a black deck, obviously, you'd have to completely redo whatever sort of style you were. Game 1, turn 2 Wilson, turn 3 background, attack. It buffs. It always buffs. That's the other thing about this deck, is that it is literally like Wilson, the background, and then just all the pump spells. So even when I did get to 4 mana, I was on the play, get to 3 mana and go Lightning Bolt plus pay the tax, the ward tax, and then he had a pump spell, of course. And then the next turn, I was able to get to 4 mana, and I played I want to say Royal Eruption plus pay the tax. still had a pump spell, and it just didn't work. And yeah, I literally could not beat Ward. And even though I was able to play burn spells and draw cards, and I even played Electrode out, it's just Wilson, once he gets going, it's so hard to stop him, especially if you're trying to deal with him in a damage-based way. I literally don't have anything in my deck that deals more than 4 damage.
Yeah, it's something like this too, since it's always triggering, and to be clear what triggering means, we're starting with a 2/2, and by turn 3, Wilson's a 3/3 that attacks with Indestructible and Death Touch. And then by turn 4, it's, a 4/4 with all of those abilities too. So getting rolling is super powerful, and almost similar in a sense to the Essior Timna that we run into a lot with Oak's EDH deck, where going down with a commander that's super powerful and has protection, and then it's super hard to get through that in a lot of cases. So kind of, especially taking advantage of backgrounds in a 1v1 setting, this has to be brutal to get through. And in a deck that really just pings damage on small creatures or a couple spells at once, Ward is going to be a cost for each spell you cast. You can't even fire off 2 spells in a mana-efficient way to kind of get rid of this Grizzly. Do you think a deck that was focused more on bounce would have done any better, or do you think that still would have run into Wilson's just easy enough to play and keep coming at you?
It's maybe bouncing. The thing with bouncing is that, you can just play Wilson again for 2.
Right,
he's
very
cheap. Danny and I were discussing during the games and slightly after. He was saying, like, yeah, the minute you can actually remove Wilson and I have to pay 4 or even 6 mana for him, then we have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, just at every turn, he always had a pump spell. There's 30 instants in this deck, and basically all of them are pump spells.
Pump spells are hexproof.
Yeah, exactly. Even being able to pump by a single point of toughness can completely negate an entire turn, because I just paid 3 mana for my lightning bolt, and now I literally can't do anything else. And now you're going to attack next turn, and you're going to be a 5/5 or something like that. Mm-hmm. Game 2, similar sort of thing. I was on the play again, and I was able to Frantic Search, which is the draw 2 and then untap 3 lands, into a lightning bolt to get Wilson. Like, he had played Wilson, he hadn't even played the background yet. And this man plays a card that I've never seen before. Chev, do you know the card Gather Courage?
No. No, I do not.
It's an instant for a single green that says target creature gets +2/+2. And you might be wondering, well, Chev, he had just played Wilson on turn 2. How did he play this? Well, it turns out this card has Convoke. And people often forget that you can tap a creature you control for 1 of their color, as well as not just 1 generic.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't require the creature to be not summoning sick. So I literally drew the perfect counter, had everything, and he was just like, "No, sorry, by the way, I have literally the only way to get out of this," which was tilting for sure, but it is what it is. I play out Goblin Electromancer, mm-hmm. So right, all my stuff costs 1 less. So now with 2 burn spells, I can pay for Ward and potentially take out Wilson. He goes Compelled Duel, which is another card that I'm sure you don't know what it does. This is 1 and a green for a sorcery. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn and must be blocked this turn if able.
Ooh, a little lore effect. Okay.
Yeah, my way to get past Wilson has now been negated because he punched over it, and also, by the way, he has Trample and Death Touch, so now I'm just taking a disgusting amount of damage. Just, very, very hard. Plus, also, both games he drew, there is a spell that you can reinforce. Bannerhide Cruciak, which is just like a 4/4/4, but you can reinforce it for 1 and a green and discard it to put 2 counters on target creature. And he had that both games, and that was real problematic. I'm not going to lie.
Modern Horizons 2 coming at you again.
Modern Horizons 2 has just made everything the worst.
It's really up the PDH game for sure.
Yeah, and then after that, I continue to, similar to how I was just trying to dig in my game last week, I'm able to bump through my deck, but at this point, Wilson is like a 7/7 or an 8/8, and I just literally cannot beat that. I concede. It was a little disheartening, not gonna lie. The Agent of the Iron, the Agent of the Shadow Thieves interaction, a little annoying because of the multiplayer thing, and then of course once again Ward just being like, I mean you and I have commented on things like the SER deck and stuff like, okay, yeah, technically it's Ward, so we can target it, but it's
cost prohibitive a lot of the time, and maybe something like a 1v1 scenario, it feels both better and worse. Better in the sense that there aren't other threats that you might convince yourself are better targets because they will cost you less mana, but also everything has to target that one creature, and especially if you're in a deck that can't actually remove, you can't really do that with Ward and just get through by casting a bunch of spells. So Ward is prohibitive against these sort of pinger or red-based damage decks in a really powerful way.
especially in PDC, right? When
Yes.
we're going super fast and we're one-on-one, namely like Wilson is the commander, right? You always have access to it. But even if I was like a black base deck and I had a 1 mana black removal spell, still having to go up to even just cast that can be prohibitive. Like playing spells that cost 3 or 4 mana is rare.
Yeah, that's your turn.
Most of your spells are still costing 1 or 2 mana. And, now all of a sudden, if you have to pay 4 mana for like a Doomblade or something, it is your turn. Or by the time you can get around to it, the damage has already been done. Like I said, like Wilson being able to immediately attack as a 3/3 with trample and then likely attack for way more because you've untapped and you have mana for all these pump spells, which there's 30 of them, right? It's like you're always going to have 3 pump spells in hand. It only needs 2-3 turns to kill you. So either way, it certainly is a cool deck. I would like to maybe play this next time you and I do a little PDC game night. But yeah, I guess we're just gonna hope for the best. It's really starting to feel like it's kind of like some multi-level rock paper scissors, and it's like, well, whoever's deck I roll against, that's gonna determine whether I take a win or not, as opposed to how well I'm playing. But we'll see.
I mean, that is one of the things too with 1v1 formats that you get more of, where certain decks have weaknesses and then your deck will either be good against it or not. And one of the benefits of Commander is you do have that political angle where you might not be able to deal with a threat, but should it be significantly threatening, you can rely on other players or make those deals. So it's interesting, especially for us, and then me as the listener, really in this case, to see your transition back into a 1v1 format and the different sort of things that we're either relearning or learning for the first time, since this is a gauntlet of 1v1 against people that we don't normally play against in a format that we're just kind of breaking into.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Chev, let me tell you about a deck that has no weaknesses. And that's our deck of the week. It's Ley and Lore Weavers, baby. Let's go.
Classic.
Ley and Lore Weavers, another older, grandfathered in deck in the database. Another personal one. This is one that I've actually played a few times when we've played, so I have some real experience with it. And also, I didn't happen to notice this until like right now, but this is also a Yaloron deck. So I don't know what's up with me and Yaloron, but we are kindred spirits. Ley and Lore Weaver, we are working with partners from the Battle Bond set, and they are in the Simic color pair. So, of course, Chev hates it already.
Yep, completely.
Ley Weaver is the green one. It's going to be 3 and a green for a human druid. 2/2, partners with Lore Weaver, of course, and then you can tap it to untap 2 target lands. Remember that for later. And then we have Lore Weaver, 3 and a blue for a human wizard, partners with Ley Weaver, of course. 2/2 for the low cost of 5 and double blue. Target player can draw 2 cards.
Beautiful.
Now, what are we doing with this deck besides clearly playing lands and drawing cards, right? That's what Simic does. Well, this is a combo deck focused on generating infinite mana. I know, a novel approach. And our combo is going to be with something like a Freed from the Real or a Galvanic Alchemist, which, if you don't know who Galvanic Alchemist is, 2 and a blue for a human wizard with Soul Bond. If you remember that mechanic from Avacyn Restored, it's a 1/4, and as long as Galvanic Alchemist is paired with another creature, each of those creatures has 2 and a blue, untap this creature. So basically just a slightly more expensive version of something like a Freed from the Real. We're going to be able to tap and untap as long as we have one of those and a creature that can quote-unquote tap for 4 mana. In this deck, that's going to be utilizing tapping and untapping lands that either produce multiple mana or have things like ramp enchantments on them. Assuming we can tap for either 2+ or 4+ mana with Freed from the Real and Galvanic Alchemist respectively, then we can continually tap and untap, generate infinite mana, and then we can play our second commander, the Lore Weaver, and Lore Weaver says target player draws 2 cards. So as long as we are able to generate 2 blue and generate infinite blue mana, we can deck all of our opponents out. So that's our win condition. To get there, we're playing a bunch of, like I said, the land ramp auras, things like Gift of Paradise, Utopia Sprawl, things like Overgrowth and Market Festival are going to tap for an additional 2. Obviously, that costs a little bit more. Those are going to be 4 mana as opposed to 3 or less, but now all of a sudden we're tapping for 3 mana with 1 land. We can easily untap 2 lands with something like our Ley Weaver, and now that's the 4+ mana that we need no matter which option we're using for our untapping. In addition to our commander, we have a bunch of other untappers: Arbor Elf, Rhyme Tender, Voyaging Satyr. So we can get the combo off without Ley Weaver. It's just a little bit harder. You need to invest more, especially in things like the land enchantments, perhaps double or tripling up on them on 1 land, which is always a little dangerous because there's things like obviously Capsize and Snap and Boomerang in the format. That's probably like one of the biggest weaknesses of this deck is that if they are able to like bounce your land, which like I said, there are options to bounce the land, then you lose the enchantments and you can kind of get hosed going off mid combo, which is unfortunate. But it's a pretty straightforward deck, similar to the Pure Sight Marrow. That is the combo. The combo is ostensibly 3 cards, but we have all sorts of ways to find it, to protect it, and of course, once we go off, then we're good to go. I want to talk a little bit about Galvanic Alchemist. It's a sick card. First of all, the Soul Bond ability does not target. When it comes in, you just like pick another creature. Things like Stave Off or Intervene or Vines of the Vastwood, which are oftentimes used to protect our own stuff, but because of the way they're worded, can interrupt a combo, essentially. Those do not work if we're doing Galvanic Alchemist. So sometimes it's better to actually search Galvanic Alchemist out as opposed to Freed from the Real, which can be disrupted a little bit. A bunch of ways to search Galvanic Alchemist. We're running a ton of Transmute, which I'll get to, but we also have 2 Wizard cycling cards, Vidalcan Aether Mage, and also Step Through. Vidalcan Aether Mage is not a card that really is going to ever see play, but you can Wizard cycle it for 3. But Step Through is actually a card that I have at least cast once or twice in my life. 3 blue, return 2 target creatures to their owner's hands, and then you can Wizard cycle it for 2. So perfectly fine to cast if you already have a way to get Galvanic Alchemist, but otherwise can also be a way to get to that. Of course, we're running all the good blue draw and stuff to get there, and plenty of the Transmute, right? Muddle the Mixture. Drift of Phantasms, of course, is a 3, so that can get us both of our combo pieces. Also, we're playing a Dizzy Spell, which is one that oftentimes is not played, that can get us a 1, because we have like literally all of the cards that protect, Vines of Vastwood, Turn Aside, Shore Up obviously is new. Also Avoid Fate, which is a card that we have mentioned on the Hexshrinkers a few times. That's super cool, and Tamio's Safekeeping as well. We're playing a bunch of ways to protect, so we can transmute for those just in case we need a little bit of resiliency when we're about to go off. I think the last card that I want to talk about, because it's just the only card in the deck that I was like, why is this here? Lifespark Spellbomb. Chev, do you know what this card does?
I was just looking at this too, because we've got the list pulled up. A 1 mana artifact, a green to sack it until end of turn, target land becomes a 3/3 creature that's still a land, or tap 1 to sack it and draw a card. Yeah, I'm interested, at least like looking at it and what this deck is trying to do. I was trying to think of like maybe if your land gets targeted by something, or maybe it's destroy target non-creature land. Maybe there's a particular removal spell we're missing, and this kind of protects it if this is a land that has multiple enchantments on it already. But the only other thing I could think of is maybe you can turn it into a creature and then use something like Freed from the Real, where it taps 4 mana because you've enchanted it as a creature, and then you use the Freed from the Real to untap it, allowing you to kind of get around the need to do something else. But that's as janky as I could think of.
That is one of the options that I was considering. I definitely think that you can, quote unquote, build your own. This would have to be done with Freed from the Real. I don't think you can do this with Galvanic Alchemist.
I think
well, you could. It would be very hard. You'd have to have a lot of auras on that one land. But something else that I was thinking about that maybe you could do, and this might just be a meta call, but I'm wondering if we could use this to reanimate an opponent, or not reanimate, animate an opponent's Mystic Sanctuary, and then enable it for destruction mid-combo, essentially. I think that would be a very cool way to use this, especially if we were colluding with potentially a red player at the table and they could lightning bolt it. I would say that most likely this is the last resort, build your own tapper and untapper, but I would love someone to just be able to murk a Mystic Sanctuary like with the trigger on the stack and just be like, sorry, you don't get to have this anymore.
One thing I want to point out, it sometimes gets overlooked, and I remember the last time I played against this deck, it did too, and that is that Lore Weaver's ability for the 7 mana target player draws 2 cards. It's not a tap ability or anything like that. So essentially, you just need to get infinite mana with Ley Weaver, and Lore Weaver doesn't even need to be on the battlefield. You can cast it that turn into the combo and then using that ability. So it's super resilient in the way of, you play Lore Weaver earlier or Chump or whatever. You don't care. You're making infinite mana. So Commander Tax is irrelevant, and having Lore Weaver on the battlefield before you're ready to kind of put it all together is also irrelevant, because Lore Weaver, for 3 and a blue, if you're generating infinite blue mana for Lore Weaver's ability, you can get Lore Weaver onto the battlefield. And even if it gets removed, you can just replay it too. So it's really consistent if Ley Weaver can hit and you get the enchantments on the lands.
And that is something important to notice because some of the land ramp auras specifically provide green, or they provide one of whatever that land made, which might be green. So you need to make sure that you always can produce 2 blue per every tap. But yeah, like you said, we can play through basically anything.
One final thing I want to say, and that is, deck good. We've covered it. It's really worth trying out if you want to kind of dip your toe into a combo that's not high tide in the PDH meta. This one's very easy to understand, and it can be a very good jumping off point for kind of getting into more complex things.
Yeah.
But I really have to give thanks to Yaloron for, one, maintaining the list, because that is always a problem and something we've talked about more and more on the database, but two, updating the CMCs for the expected use of each card. So that is a really cool feature in Moxfield, where you can edit the CMC of a card when it is displayed and when it's factoring into your main CMC with and without lands at the bottom, the average mana cost of the deck. So updating cards like Step Through, which the number one plan is to use the Wizard Cycling to get the Galvanic Alchemist, and changing it from the 5 mana cost that Step Through normally is, and instead showing the 2 mana Wizard Cycling cost, or Treasure Cruise for 1 mana, which you can normally see it's used to kind of reduce the cost so you remember how much it is. But for something like Dizzy Spell, where it really is included as a tutor for our protection, you're going to be expecting it to be a 3 mana spell. So kind of getting in the mindset of seeing it like that in the deck display is super useful, super helpful, and a great tool if you're using the Moxfield program.
It's almost just like an extension of the primer. It's like, we will always do this. So, and of course, the primer is also extremely well written as well.
Yeah.
There's a whole ton of why aren't you running this, or alt card choices and metagame adjustments sections that are very, very thorough. I'm not going to get into those now because, But yeah, once again, similar to the Pure Sight Mirror list that I brought 2 weeks ago, this is not only a powerful deck, I would say it's even more powerful than Pure Sight Marrow. But yeah, the combo is super simple. Like I said, it's basically 3 cards.
Yeah.
And super resilient. So if you want a entry point that's not going to melt your brain, this is an excellent option. And of course, Simic. So we love Simic.
Deck good.
Deck certainly good. What's next on the schedule, Chev?
So before we get into Unfinity, I kind of want to use this opportunity to go over something new that we're going to try out on the podcast. We have our deck of the week, where we're trying to highlight strategies and ideas and different parts of the CPDH meta, so people who are less familiar can kind of learn a new deck, learn a new strategy, or learn a little bit more about it. But something else we really want to highlight are CPDH creators outside of just the deck list. So the CPDH is still growing as a format, but it's really important to kind of call out the creators that put out content in various other forms for it. And we're going to kind of touch off here with a CPDH mainstay. That would be the tryhards, who upload video content probably about once a week to once every 2 weeks. And their most recent video, which was a 4-player CPDH game of Storm Skrillex, turned out to be the winner. It was a Dragon's Approach style deck helmed by Quirts. Crackling Drake, a classic database staple from Clay. Dargo Kedis, another one of the Dargo Plus lists that always seem to be popping up from Gatorbait TV. And then a Fathom Fleet Swordjack deck by Matt Edwards. And so we both had an opportunity to watch the game. We really liked what we saw. What were your main takeaways from it, Julian?
Well, first off, we got a whole lot of red. That's a lot of red if I've ever seen one. Yeah, this was a quick game. The video is only about 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
I think once again this is just another statement that aggro is taking over the format, not only because we had 2 mono red aggro decks, but also because we have the one of the PDH classics of the blue red Spell Slinger, Tempo Burn, whatever sort of thing in Skrillex, as well as Crackling Jake. So that was cool. I gotta say, loving the Dragon's Approach.
Yeah.
The fact that it won was actually wild. I would need to take a closer look at that deck list and kind of pick it apart a bit more, but I like that this is a strategy that we're trying to tread into.
Yeah.
Especially in something like CPDH.
It reminds me, I think for a little bit, Oak was trying to make a Sir Kara deck of Dragon's Approach for PDH. I think we saw it played once or twice, and it did pretty well. But it feels like Dragon's Approach is really made for something like Storm Skrillex. I remember not necessarily discounting it, but a little wary when it was spoiled last year, that in the CPDH meta where if you're playing kind of is it spells, you're probably better off with Crackling Drake because it is so versatile and can get so big and can deal damage like that. I was wondering, what is the right deck for Storm Skrillex where, yes, it's a Goblin Electromancer in the command zone, but how often is that relevant with a prowess-like trigger? Dragon's Approach, where you're just going to be paying 2 mana to deal a collective 9 damage across the table, is beautiful. I really wonder if there are any dragons in the deck. We didn't really get to see any because they kept getting removed by relics as soon as the Dragon Approaches hit the graveyard. But just that consistent amount of damage that would also trigger Storm Skrillex to get big in a pinch, it was a super cool deck to see.
Yeah, I think Skrillex is kind of one of those things where if you put enough good-ish effects onto a card, you can eventually get there. Because coming in at like 5 mana and like a base 2/4, I don't love it, but being able to, reducing Dragon's Approach down from 3 to 2 is like crazy huge.
Yes. That
gap is only 1 mana, but it's ridiculous. So having that Goblin Electromancer effect, and then also having that prowess plus effect where this can become, almost like a Crackling Drake in terms of how much it's punching for. I think once you kind of put those all together, it justifies the package and the fact
cost,
that it's 5 mana and all that sort of stuff. So speaking of Crackling Drake, though, that's one of the best things about Crackling Drake is that, like you said, it's a mainstay because it's just so consistent. I can't ever see that being a bad pick for any sort of metagame or whatever pod you go into. It's always going to be a good choice.
You've got your red and blue for control and burn, and then on top of that, you get a giant creature that no matter how many times your graveyard is exiled, maintains the same size, which is one of the big things we talked about from the Sailor's Bane upgrade from Cryptic Serpent and anything else that uses the graveyard, since every little bit of value matters in PDH. Having something that can kind of deal with one of the main ways of removing threats, which is graveyard destruction, it makes something just twice as resilient right off the bat. So Crackling Drake will never be a bad pick. One thing that I was really excited to see kind of going into this was how Fathom Fleet Swordjack performed. And while it wasn't probably the best showing of the deck, even seeing it go off once was super cool and reminded me one of the best parts about PDH is we get some weird stuff in the command zone. And having Encore on a commander where, yes, it doesn't deal commander damage in that way, but being able to remove your commander or chump block with your commander and then getting 3 separate versions that are all going to deal damage, and in a deck that's really dedicated to creating a ton of artifacts, it's going to put in a lot of work. And so seeing that kind of in action was super cool and reminded me that we have some of the weirdest but best commanders in this format.
Yeah, there was one point where Matt Edwards, who was playing Fathom Fleet Swordjack, which is a card I love, by the way, because I was playing Jolene the other day. We were playing EDH, but I was playing Jolene, and I had that out, and I was able to attack for 15 damage or something.
It was close to that, yeah.
But yeah, Matt Edwards attacked and dealt 10 to someone, and then Fathom Fleet was removed, and Matt was just like, I'll just put this in the grave. And I was like, now why would you do that? And because then it came back to him and he was like, I will Encore. And now you will all take, I think 6 or something.
It was 4. Yeah. The board was a little bit light, but it was still, that's 12 points of damage.
Well, that's 12 points of damage. And also I believe that I don't think anyone had blockers either. So it's 24. It's 8 to everyone. It was crazy. That was kind of the play that really shaped the last little bit of the game because all of a sudden everyone was down to anywhere
3, 4. That allowed it to be taken by a Dragon's Approach, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it just came to the Dragon's Approach, and we were like, all right, well, that's that. But, yeah, that was certainly a cool deck. And then, of course, Dargo plus anything continues to be a CPDH staple. Similarly, Crackling Drake, it's just... that deck seemed to be focused mainly on a Goblin sub-theme. So we saw Turn 1 Skirk Prospector is just going to be nutty in that sort of shell.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I'll think Dragon's Fodder and Krenko's Command. Dargo came down, I think, 3 times.
Yeah, twice in a single turn. It came down, was removed from 2 spells, but then it just took sacking a treasure to get to pay for the commander tax of the next one, because, of course, Dargo costs X amount less for each thing sacrificed that turn. So if you're able to pay the 2 extra mana for the next cast in the same turn as it came down.
Dargo, it's too generic for every sacrifice you have. So assuming you can play Dargo and then he gets removed, sacking a treasure for a red allows you to replay him.
Yep.
Because that treasure was sacrificed, that's an additional 2 for the commander tax, and then you just need the red to pay his 1 colored pip. They really should have made him like have 2 or 3 red colored pips if they wanted them to be like quote unquote fair. But I guess they also were balancing that format for
right, limited and
EDH.
EDH, yeah.
And I'm sure they were like, oh, they can cast a 6/5 for like really cheap, It's like, oh, whatever. But,
overall,
yeah, game was super cool.
Game was super great.
Really tight play too.
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
Like not only was the game interesting and like the decks were cool, but like just the play was very tight. Love to see that as well. All right, Chev.
We want to we put off Unfinity long enough. I think it's time to address the elephant in the space carnival.
I was like, I don't want to talk about it, but like I guess we should. First up, there's not that much we have to work with. There's, I want to say like 20-ish new uncommons that can be commanders, and then there's like 4 new commons. They all generally are dealing with stickers and attractions. Chev, would you mind giving us just like a quick rundown of those, because we're going to find out that it's a little superfluous the way they've set things up.
Yeah, so attractions are this new mechanic where you'll have creatures that enter the battlefield or ability play an attraction. You will keep a pile of, I think, 10 minimum attractions outside your deck during constructed. They'll be shuffled, etc., extra deck. And then when you make an attraction, you take the top card from that and put it down. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, you roll a die, and a 6-sided die, and depending on the result, you either visit the attraction or not. I'm kind of skimming over this a lot because, as it turns out, for constructed, you need a minimum deck of attractions that is size 10. But there will only be 8 attractions printed at common.
Oh, what a shame.
So, as we've seen with rulings before in the RC, especially with backgrounds and the commanders themselves, they need to be uncommon, but then everything else can be common. And so that is going to include the extra deck here. So, unless we see some kind of change of direction from the rules committee, which I cannot see happening, I don't think we're going to have attractions, especially at the competitive level of PDH. I'm sure kitchen tables everywhere, rule 0 at home, get your nice little deck of 8. The effects are not going to be backbreaking at common. But for CPDH, where we're trying to play at that tournament level, I think this is something that is not going to be a big threat because not enough exist. And this also rules out a bunch of the potential commanders, right? Because if you're playing DK, Finder of the Lost, for 3 mana, and its big thing is when it enters the battlefield, open an attraction, irrelevant. More affecting the world of PDH are stickers. The way to bring alchemy to the paper masses. There will be 48 sticker sheets. I believe all are technically common. They don't have a rarity. They're stickers. Players must choose 10 unique sticker sheets and randomly pick 3 to use at the start of a game. If you draft, you'll just use the 3 sticker sheets you open. And if you're doing sealed, you'll just pick 3 of the 6. And then for playing casually, or for all us online and spell table folks, there will be a tool posted online to pick 3 random sticker sheets of the 48. So this is a mechanic that's coming to Eternal, whether you like it or not, and you need to be prepared to either have your deck of 10 sticker sheets you're picking 3 from each time, or just use the online tool for 3 random. And we'll get into how effective we think this is in a minute, but that is the mechanic that we will need to look out for on the PDH level.
So there's 5 potential uncommon commanders that deal with attractions. Those are automatically ruled out, right? Because we're not just going to play a vanilla 2-3 for 3 or whatever. But I believe like basically all of the other 15 of the 20 that we have pretty much deal with stickers. There might be like one other one that doesn't deal with stickers. It's really going to hinge on not only what sticker cards Wizards has out, which there's 48 of them. I haven't read through all of them, but I'm just going to take a look here and say that I don't think they are pushed enough to warrant. But the other thing is that, unfortunately, this really comes down to chance, because you might have, say they printed 1 or 2 super busted sticker sheets, you might never draw those of your random 3.
Right. And this is something that's really going to come down to when you're playing online. If you're playing a sticker commander, you probably don't want to use that online tool of a random pick 3, because I think that's 3 of 48. I don't know if you get to pick your subset of 10 before it chooses. And so you probably want to pick the 10 best sticker sheets. And of course, it's good to remember too, stickers don't leave your cards as they change zones. So if you get one of these on a commander, which I think is the best and number one way to play these, it will maintain on your commander as it moves between zones. There are some really powerful abilities on these. There's hexproof on a sticker sheet. There's protection from creatures with 2 or more creature types, persist, undying, protection from odd mana values, infect, one that gives death touch and lifelink, and that's before you get to the stickers that adjust power toughness. There's one with indestructible. There are some really powerful abilities on these, but any deck that kind of plays one is going to be dealing with that chance a lot. And for every one of those, there's a sticker sheet. I'm trying to find the worst one right now. Probably like maybe even the one with protection from creatures of 2 or more creature types. Pay 5 mana. Creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. A lot of these I think work best if you're trying to end up building a Voltron deck, because otherwise the abilities are just too chaotic for you to really be able to plan around 3 of a random subset of 10.
I agree. I mean, now that I'm looking at it, like you said, there are some good stuff, but I'm not seeing anything that wouldn't warrant just playing like a normal staple in your deck. I don't think there's any like combos that you could pull off, right? If there's anything that was like untapping, you know, then it's like, oh well, maybe I could get cute and put this in my Ley and Lore Weaver deck, but I'm not seeing it. I will say some of the stat lines on some of these are pretty wild. Yeah. But I don't think that going for stickers and hoping that you draw the one that has a 10/10 on it is the way to go in your Voltron deck.
They're a little bit all over the place, which is going to make it interesting sort of dynamic for your opponents and for you in judging the ability of this deck. Or I know if I lose to someone who just happens to roll the cool fluffy Loxodon sticker sheet, one of the first that was kind of shown off, and gets the 5-ticket ability. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, this permanent becomes a 13/13 Eldrazi. That's going to be a little bit crazy in PDH and going to feel weird when you lose to that one. And I think it's something else to kind of discuss here too, which we're trying to kind of evaluate this from the competitive level. And something else is there's really no support from the new commons that we're seeing for stickers and attractions in a meaningful level.
Breaking update, Chev and Jules from the future here. We recorded the podcast Monday night. It is Tuesday evening now,
the
and
27th.
Wizards decided to release the rest of the spoiler, which is like a bunch of commons, so obviously relevant.
It's the one thing we do here.
But also not super relevant. There are a lot of these that do deal with stickers and give you the tickets that you need to get, but generally they're not... none of them are so enabling as to make the various commanders that we discussed either before this in the pod or after this in the pod, I guess, depending on where I splice this in.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Chev, but I don't think any of these are going to push a sticker strategy into the competitive realm.
No.
But it is good to see that stickers are receiving support. You can definitely make a whole deck now with stickers, especially if you have a multicolored commander. Competitive, doubt it.
Yeah, that was the big thing. You know, we talked about there was like 4 new commons as of yesterday, and then with the spoiler dump that we received this morning, we wanted to just kind of go back and dot our T's and cross our I's.
As you do.
And kind of mention the last few cards that were brought up here and which colors are really good if you're going to really push that sticker synergy. Of the cards that got shown off, we have 2 colorless ticket generators, one of which can place stickers, and that would be a new 3-mana Mana Rock. For tap 3 and you get a ticket, and then the Ticket Tomaton that enters the battlefield, get a ticket, and then put a sticker on an online permanent you own. So that's pretty good. We also got 4 ticket generators in green. 3 of them are ETBs, though, and only 1 is kind of a repeatable effect, and I think that's really where, like, we're talking competitive, we want consistency. It's a little alien dude, adorable, Blorbian Buddy, 1 mana 1/1 with trample, and tap a green and him to get a ticket. So that's something that you can really use only, once per turn, but that's still good, and that doesn't place the stickers like the ETBs ones do. There's 1 in red, 3 ticket generators in blue, 1 of which is repeatable, kind of a similar effect to that Blorbian alien, and then 2 ETB effects in white. A lot of the time, at common, these ticket generators are kind of creature enters the battlefield, get a couple tickets, place a sticker. So unless you're in white with some sort of blink, this is not really a repeatable effect unless you're in green or blue, which does open up Ambassador Blorby Blorboop.
That's probably looking the best
Correct.
From my estimation right now. If you wanted to do a sticker sort of thing, that new Mana Rock, the blue prize wall, which is a wall 0/4, 1 and a blue defender. You can tap blue and tap it to get a ticket, and you can do 4 and a blue and tap it to put a sticker. I mean, it's overcosted as all hell, but that is like kind of the full package right there in terms of what you'd want.
Right.
It seems like the sheer critical mass that you might need would be in something like a green blue with something like Blorby Blorb Blue. But that brings up,
Yeah.
if we're playing green-blue, why are we not just playing Ley and Lore Weavers or Tatiova or whatever?
Right. Yeah, there are much better things than ETB make 3 tickets, because Blorpy Blorp Boop is also not. Other than that, we have a little bit of that sticker synergy, and there's probably only like 3 commons I really want to call out. 2 are really good for token strategies, I think, or, more of what we'd expect and on par with what could be playable. We have Clowning Around, which is 1 and a white to make 2 1/1 artifact robot clowns. And then you roll a die, and if the number is less than or equal to the number of clowns you control, you get to make another one. You probably don't have more than 2, so it's probably going to be a 2 mana, make 2 1/1s, kind of similar to any of those, like put down 2 soldiers or something, with a 33% chance of making a 3rd clown. The next is Circuits Act. Second verse, same as the first, 3 mana, roll 3 dice, and then for each different result, make a 1/1 clown. So, chance of making 2 to 3 for 3 mana in red. Boros are the colors where you usually care about tokens outside of Ortsov, so these are just a couple good token cards if you're trying to get more for maybe your Zada deck or something else where you want many more targets. The only card that really separates from stickers or these 2 token generators and actually has some potential, and it's wild. Julian, I'm not sure how much you followed it when it was being spoiled today. That is Embiggen instant for 1 green. Until end of turn, target non-Brushwag creature gets +1/+1 for each super type, card type, and subtype. So I'm pretty sure that means if you've got any one of the numerous like legendary creatures or artifact creatures in your command zone, this is going to be a +4/+4. And there are certainly decks that are going to care about that. Anything with Infect, anything, a pump spell, if someone's, I don't know, hypothetically going after your Wilson Grizzly, and you want to get +4/+4, because it's going to be legendary creature, and then bear, and then their other type.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I was trying to remember what counts for this and what doesn't. But yeah, I guess if you're regularly getting +3 or +4, I think this is pretty good. I mean, I talked about Wilson, and he would love to have this.
And before anyone gets too bent out of shape about the target non-Brushwag, that's specifically in there to stop changelings, which would make this an insane amount for 1 green mana and make them essentially an infinite.
Whatever gets them through it, whatever floats their boat.
Good stuff. The rest of the commons care about attractions, which we don't, or stickers and art stickers, which we also don't. Glancing again, Chicken Troop, 2 mana 2/2 with Ward 2. Maybe your decks that are like your Enchantress effects and stuff. Maybe this would be good in a Satyr Enchanter deck. But other than that, that is the common update once we have the full spoiler. Not much new, but enough that if you really tried to push stickers, you could probably make a deck that does a thing.
It would be a deck. You would be able to play Magic the Gathering with it. I don't know how successful you would be at actually winning.
And you'd probably be able to play at least 1 sticker.
Yes, definitely a singular sticker. All right, back to the future. No, past.
Something.
Roll the tape.
Right, there's a couple cards. There's like Command Performance, which we saw, Blue Sorcery. Use it to either get 2 tickets or put a sticker on a non-land permanent you own. Or Robo Pinata, a 3 mana white clown robot that when it dies, get 2 tickets or put a sticker on something. But, as one of the 99, this is not going to, make or break a deck. So you're really down to what you can get out of the command zone. And when you look at what you can get out of the command zone, there are very few consistent options. So I know when I was kind of checking through these 4 potential commanders, a lot of them come down, enter the battlefield, and give you maybe 1 or 2 tickets. Now, for names and art stickers, you can put them on whenever you get a line of text that says you may put a sticker on a non-land permanent you own. But those are aesthetic, really, for any eternal ability. And so you're going to be worrying about these abilities that are on each card and the power toughness. And those cost tickets. So to get any value out of it, you want multiple ways to get tickets, and that's going to be out of any of these commanders that have a repeatable ticket generating ability. Something like Clandestine Chameleon or something like Ambassador Blorpity Blorp Boop. I just really wanted to say the name of that card in a serious context.
That's fine.
Yeah, I needed to. On those ETBs, you just get 2 tickets, and then what? You got to wait for your 4 or 5 mana commander to get removed and then play it again. Like that's not going to get you there. So I think the 2 cards with the most potential as a commander from Unfinity trying to be aggressive are either Bioluminary or Park Bleeder. Bioluminary is a 3 mana 1/3 merfolk Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you get 2 tickets. Then you may put a sticker on a non-land permanent you own. So we're in blue. We have access to unblockable. We have access to tapping down opponents' creatures. This has the potential to get through. And then once you get a sticker that changes power toughness, which of course is on all sticker sheets. But I think at that same mana value, Park Bleeder, a GOAT employee, has the highest potential as a 3 mana 2/2. Whenever another creature you own enters the battlefield, you get a ticket, and then tap a white and you may put a sticker on a creature you own that entered the battlefield this turn. So this is going to be less Voltron-y. Therefore, I might suffer a little bit from that because you can't activate Park Bleeder on itself the same turn. So I might actually be leaning towards Bioluminary by the end of this rant. But I really like Park Bleeder's first line of text of getting a ticket every time a creature you own enters the battlefield, because as I was doing some research, you own tokens. So if you get some good token generators in this deck, you have the ability to generate tickets at a faster rate than you might with Bioluminary that is kind of stuck to 2 tickets per turn cycle. So Park Bleeder can generate a lot more, but you're probably going to be gifting these abilities onto a threat that gets played, or kind of Voltroning one of the tokens or something else that you end up playing.
Chev, explain this to me, because I feel like I'm missing something with the stickers. So for Park Bleeder, it says whenever a creature enters, you get a ticket, right? So let's say I get 2 tickets, and I'm like, I want the ticket that turns something into a 4/4.
Right.
So I can use those 2 tickets just like I would be using, say, like Energy from Kaladesh, and I get that ticket, and I can immediately put it on something?
No. So you need 2 things for those ability stickers. You need the tickets, and you need a trigger that allows you to put a sticker on a creature you control. So something like Bioluminary, it's you get the 2 tickets, then you may put a sticker on an on-land permanent you own. So that is like, in that same ability, you get the tickets, you can immediately spend them. With Park Bleeder, it's the 2-step that is what kind of makes it not as good, because you get the tickets, but you need to activate Park Bleeder to be able to put a sticker down. Or, with Command Performance or Robo Pinata that have the ability to put a sticker down, then you can do it that way. But you need both the tickets to get the sticker, and you need the triggered ability of putting a sticker on a permanent.
Okay, all right. Well, I don't like this mechanic anymore. I didn't really like it in the first place that much, but now it just really seems like super unplayable.
Yeah, it's hard in Eternal Legal, and I think we're going to end up with this being one of the first sets that is kind of produced outside of kind of premier sets that has no effect on PDH.
Yeah.
every time we get one, like, even with the Warhammer decks, right? We got 2 downshifts. With the Modern Horizons, it completely opens the format in a different way. This might be the first one we can just blink and ignore. But if there's a card that has potential, I think it's Bioluminary or Park Bleeder.
Frankly, I'm glad that this set didn't do anything. One, because we all know that I hate fun and I hate unsets. But also, just like, once you were like, oh, attractions aren't legal and everything deals with stickers and there's no real way to like consistently get them and like make them, I just kind of get to turn my brain off. That being said, I like to hear the sound of my own voice, so I'm going to mention a few things that could have potential. God forbid we ever do Unfinity 2 and there's some more support, then things like this could happen. But like, the first thing I saw was like Roxy published this to the stars, 2 red blue, star 4, flying. Power is equal to the number of permanents you control with an art sticker, plus the number of cards in your graveyard with an art sticker, and when it enters, distribute up to 2 art stickers among 1 or 2 non-land permanents you own. This is Crackling Drake at home.
The other thing, too, with that is, don't forget, you only get 3 sticker sheets. So the max value that Roxy could even be is a 9/4. It caps out. Because if you were to put a sticker on something, and you're out of art stickers specifically, you just can't.
I take it back. I hate this. All right. Well, what about? Hear me out.
All right.
Scampire.
I like this one a little bit.
2 in a black. Vampire employee. Why is? Oh, because they're working. There's like employee is like a subtype, and it really is.
Employee, performer, and guest, I think, are the new ones.
1/3. When it enters, you get a ticket. Then you may put a sticker on a creature card in your graveyard. So that's like the trigger, right? You need something to say that in order to actually stick it. And then you can pay 3 in a black, return target creature card with a sticker on it from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gets haste, exiled at the beginning of the next end step. Activate only as a sorcery. Reanimating things, right? Like we could maybe
potentially, yeah.
It's still just not
right, because you need the ticket generation, and unless we get maybe I think there's only 60 legal commons that are coming out in this set, so maybe they're saving a lot of the just generic ticket support for the dump Tuesday or Wednesday after this records, and some of this might be irrelevant. Even then, you're probably getting 2 or 3 cards in your 99, and then Scampire only creating a ticket when it enters the battlefield. You're going to need to come up with your own recursive strategies to kind of get the tickets to play the stickers, because a lot of the ticket abilities are between 2 and 5 tickets, and the two cost abilities are relatively weak. Haste, whenever this creature attacks, scry 1, trample, menace, bolster 1. Like, these aren't really big things. If you're wanting the ones that we were talking about, the protection, the infect, the hexproof, they're between 3 and 5 tickets. So even for something like Bioluminary, it's going to have to trigger twice. Park Bleeder, you're going to need 4 creatures sent to the battlefield, and you'll need Scampire to bounce 4 times to get the right stickers, assuming you have no other support. So it's just really not something you can count on. It's multiple levels, right? You have the needing the tickets to get the stickers and needing the right stickers, because even with everything together, you have a solid ticket engine. If you get 3 bad sticker sheets, you're out of luck for the entire game.
It's unfortunate. There's one last card I want to talk about because I think there's potential here. Wicker Picker. 3 generic for an artifact creature, Scarecrow Guest, 2/3. Creature spells, you have Sticker Kicker, which, by the way, is a great name for a band. Sticker Kicker 1. You may pay an additional 1 generic as you cast a creature spell. If you do, you get a ticket. Then you may put a sticker on it.
Okay.
This is actually a cool card, and this, I think, is the one time that I would advocate for them to make a 5-color commander.
That would be really good, because it enables itself.
Do we have any 5-color commanders in PDA?
Fusion Elemental,
like a couple
composite.
We have
Golem.
Fusion Elemental, and I think we have like a couple of the ones from Alara
that
maybe have like the activated abilities. I forget, but there's no good ones. And I'm thinking like make Wicker Picker 5 colors, even make it like 3 mana, but like some of it's like hybrid or something. You know, then you can have all the potential, right? And you're not niched, because there's some other ones that I was looking at that I didn't even mention, that like there could be something cool you did, especially if you get more sticker support in the future. But it's like they're just locked into one color, like mono green or mono black or something. It's like if we had all 5 colors, then we could really still probably just be a filthy casual, but like, you know, we could try.
I think Wicker Picker, you know, there are a decent number of artifact creatures, and since it has the ability to both get you a ticket and has the sticker ability on there, like there are plenty of flying, you know, artifact creatures that maybe this could be useful and get those abilities on. But I think at the end of the day, either the abilities aren't enough because the creatures can't remove, and then you're in colorless, so you have no way to really recur or a way to deal with any sort of threat. But yeah, I agree. If Wicker Picker was a color or 2 or 5, things would be a lot better.
I can't believe that I was trying to scrape the bottom of the barrel for this freaking set. But you know, I just want more options. I want there to be more ways to play this format that we love. But this just ain't it. Which good, because I hate this set. So screw them.
Yeah, I'm excited to be proven wrong. I want to see someone do something absolutely stupid with one of these cards. I was even looking like, okay, we have dice rolling is again important. Monoxa, Midway Manager, 4 mana, 3/3. Whenever you roll 3 or higher, gets first strike until end of turn. If roll was 4 or higher, Menace, 5 or higher, Lifelink. So if you've got something like Hoarding Ogre or cards from AFR that let you roll a d20, I think this just works for that. And then whenever you would roll it, Monoxa becomes a first strike, Menace, Lifelink. And maybe that's good. It also has the ability to tap 6 and roll a 6-sided die, which you're probably not going to be activating. But there's still, at common, not enough ways to consistently care about die rolling at the competitive level. So that would open up a few more. Even DK has, whenever you roll 2, each opponent loses 1, you gain 1, 4, do other stuff, 6, something else. So like there are things that when we get more die support, now that it's Black Border legal, or I guess Eternal legal, Black Border doesn't even make sense anymore. This set is breaking my brain.
Acorns, buddy.
Acorn legality.
I will say though, you know what? Honestly, I'll be an elitist real quick. I really appreciate that they didn't make these things viable, because there's just something about like, right, we're playing CPDH, right? We're the competitive, the cool kids, right? And it's like, I don't want to have to sit down and expect someone to come through with their dice rolling deck or like their sticker deck. You know what I mean?
It adds
There's
levels of randomness
that
you know, take away from the feeling of success, victory, or loss, because they have an inherent randomness that you can't quite account for. Something like Hoarding Ogre, where you roll a 20, I think you make 3 treasures. which is obscene. I did that in limited a bunch of times. And so in a format where you really care about, the professional decisions, that has a big impact. I will say, though, because that upsets you, Julian, that does make me want to build a Tuscan Whiskers deck or a Line Prancers or a Discourtesy Clerk just to roll in and stomp face with something that is truly horrifying at a competitive level.
I will say, I feel like there's just no way that you would ever be able to do anything with those sort of decks. So if you want to brew them and waste your time and bring them to a game night, that's fine. But I don't think you're gonna have success with it. But Chev, why don't we close the curtain on this this attraction of Unfinity, so that we never have to talk about it again until tomorrow when we record the pod for the Hex Drinkers and we do our set review of it there in a broader scope. So,
Galaxy foiled lands. That's going to be pretty neat. If you guys haven't seen the foil treatment, it looks like, I think, one of the foil treatments from Pokemon with all the little holographic signals in there and stuff. But we're getting two new sets of basics, planetary and orbital. I think the planetary are more common, orbital less common because reasons. I think planetary are in 70% of boosters, orbital are in 25% of boosters. And then Shocklands are in the other 5, but obviously we don't care about those. But Galaxy foils look really cool, and they're super cool lands to kind of pimp out a deck, especially if you're using one of the new Warhammer
booster fun
creatures. Yeah?
I love booster fun.
Booster fun. There's collector boosters of this. Why?
Because
there's a list. They made a
because investors.
They made an
unlist. Investors.
In collector boosters, there are 50 uncards that are getting the list treatment with the Planeswalker symbol that you can get in those packs.
You mean I can get Rocket Power Turbo Slug?
Potentially, if it's one of the 50 cards they picked. I didn't look at it. I love the idea, but it's obscene that these are going to cost $30 and you can get uncards reprinted.
We'll save that for another podcast. It's a good thing these are not going to affect the most important format, CPDH. This is the House of Commons. We're out.